I am Amara Kingsley, and I am 29 years old. I still remember the exact moment my life split into a before and an after. It wasn't loud at first. It wasn't dramatic. It was just the sound of metal against porcelain, the weight of a dinner fork resting in my hand. When my father's voice cut through the warmth of the Christmas table like a blade sharpened by resentment. "Get out," he said. The room fell quiet, but my heart didn't. It pounded so loudly I was sure everyone could hear it. "Get out," he repeated louder now. "And don't ever come back." For a second, I thought I had misheard him. Christmas lights flickered softly against the windows of our family home in Hawthorne Ridge, a quiet, affluent town outside Brighton Falls. The scent of roasted turkey and spiced wine still hung in the air. My hand hovered over a bowl of cranberry sauce I had been reaching for just moments earlier. Suddenly, none of it mattered. Before this story continues, please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Your support helps stories like this reach people who need them more than you realize. "Dad, what are you talking about?" I asked, my voice betraying me despite my effort to stay composed. Across the table, my stepmother Veronica adjusted the diamond bracelet on her wrist, the stones catching the candlelight as she smirked. She had been whispering into my father's ear all evening, leaning close, planting seeds I could almost see taking root. "You heard me," my father snapped. "You come in here every year talking about your big city business like you're better than us. And you didn't even bring a proper gift." He gestured dismissively toward the neatly wrapped box beneath the tree. The Italian cashmere scarf I had chosen after weeks of searching, something understated yet thoughtful. Something I believed he would love. "My brother brought us a luxury river cruise," Veronica added smoothly, resting her manicured hand on her son's shoulder. "Ethan, her biological son." He leaned back in his chair with a satisfied grin, swirling his wine as if this were entertainment. "Ethan worked under my father at Ironvale Industrial Group, the manufacturing company where my dad, Richard Kingsley, had spent over 30 years climbing from factory floor supervisor to regional operations director. Ethan had been there less than 3 years and already acted like royalty. "I built a company from nothing," I said quietly, my hands beginning to shake. "I came home because family matters to me." "Family?" My father laughed bitterly. "You left this family the moment you ran off to the coast chasing tech fantasies." "That's not true." "Then why weren't you here?" he demanded. "Why weren't you here when your mother died?" The words hit harder than any slap ever could. I stood slowly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. My overnight bag sat by the door, packed with such hope, such foolish optimism. "I loved Mom," I said softly. "And I loved you." "Get out," he repeated. "Before I throw you out myself." The cold winter air burned my face as I stepped outside. Snow crunched beneath my boots as I walked toward my car, each step heavier than the last. Through the dining room window, I could see them laughing again, already filling my empty seat with wrapped presents. Veronica raised her glass in what looked like a toast. My father didn't look back. I called my best friend Naomi Blake before I even left the driveway. "He really did it," I whispered, gripping the steering wheel. "He chose her over me." "Come to my place," Naomi said immediately. "Don't drive upset." "I need to be alone," I replied. It was a lie. I drove through the snowy night toward my apartment in Silverline Heights, replaying every moment I should have defended myself harder, spoken louder, stayed longer. My mother had died 6 years earlier from ovarian cancer. She had been my anchor, my champion, the one who pushed me toward computer engineering when my father dismissed it as not practical for a woman. "Let her try," she had told him. "Our daughter is brilliant." After she died, everything changed. Or maybe Veronica simply revealed what had always been there. She entered my father's life less than a year after the funeral, divorced, charming, calculated. Ethan followed close behind, a man who had failed at multiple ventures and blamed everyone but himself. Within 2 years, they were married. And I was the outsider. That night, sitting alone in my apartment, city lights glowing below, I ignored the buzzing of my phone. Most people didn't know this about me. At 24, I co-founded Aurelian Systems, a logistics intelligence company, with my university partner Lucas Reed. What started as code scribbled in a cramped apartment had grown into a global infrastructure platform used by governments, shipping conglomerates, and Fortune-level corporations. The company was now valued at $5.8 billion. I owned 61%. I lived quietly. No headlines. No interviews back home. No reason for my father to ever know who I had become. until fate decided otherwise. 3 weeks after Christmas, Lucas called me. "The Ironvale acquisition is finalized," he said. "Board approved it this morning." My blood ran cold. Ironvale Industrial Group. My father's company. "Lucas," I said carefully, "I need to handle this one personally." There was a pause on the line. "Okay," he replied. "Something tells me this one matters." It did. Because I wasn't coming back as his daughter. I was coming back as his reckoning. The morning I returned to Brighton Falls, the sky was a dull winter gray, the kind that pressed low and heavy, as if the world itself was holding its breath. I stood in front of the mirror in my penthouse suite at the Larkspur Hotel, fastening the cuff of my tailored charcoal suit. The fabric was Italian wool, sharp and understated, chosen not to intimidate, but to remind myself who I had become. Not the girl who had been told to leave and never return. The woman who had built something undeniable. My assistant, Elena Moore, reviewed the schedule on her tablet. The Ironvale leadership meeting begins at 9 a.m. All senior executives will be present. Your identity as founder and majority owner hasn't been disclosed. Good, I replied calmly. Let's keep it that way. I didn't want shock yet. I wanted clarity first. As our car pulled into the Ironvale complex, rows of aging concrete buildings surrounded by rusted delivery docks, I felt a strange nostalgia tighten my chest. I'd walked these halls as a child, holding my father's hand, proud of the man who wore his work like a badge of honor. That man was gone. Inside, the reception desk looked the same. Even the scent of burnt coffee felt familiar. "Good morning," the receptionist said warmly. Her name tag read Marjorie. She had been there since I was 10. "You must be with Aurelian Systems." "Yes," I said with a polite smile. "Mr. Kingsley is expecting you." My stomach clenched at the sound of his name. The executive conference room buzzed with quiet conversation when we entered. My father sat at the head of the table, posture rigid, hair grayer than I remembered. Ethan lounged beside him, scrolling through his phone with careless confidence. He hadn't noticed me yet. Lucas entered first, greeting the board with ease. "I'm Lucas Reed, acting CFO of Aurelian Systems," he said. "This is our operations lead, Dr. Simone Harris, and—" He paused, letting the moment stretch. "This is Amara Kingsley, founder and chief executive officer of Aurelian Systems." He said, "This is our operations lead, Dr. Simone Harris, and—" He paused, letting the moment stretch. "This is Amara Kingsley, founder and chief executive officer of Aurelian Systems." Silence fell like glass shattering in slow motion. My father froze mid-handshake. Ethan's phone slipped from his fingers and clattered onto the table. My father's eyes locked onto mine, disbelief flooding his face as recognition settled in. "Amara," he whispered. "Good morning," I said evenly. "Shall we begin?" For the first time in years, I watched authority leave my father's posture. He sank into his chair, stunned, his mouth opening and closing without words. Ethan recovered faster, panic masked his arrogance. "This is a joke," he scoffed. "She's just—" "Ms. Kingsley owns 61% of Aurelian Systems," Lucas said calmly. "The acquisition finalized last week." The board murmured. I turned on the screen, the first slide illuminating the room. "Ironvale has potential," I began. "But it has been bleeding money due to poor regional oversight." My father stiffened. Charts followed, declining productivity, ballooning expenses, failed investments. There was also an unauthorized $2.3 million software purchase, Simone added, distributing files. Ethan went pale. "The vendor," Simone continued, "was a shell company registered to a former associate of Mr. Ethan Kingsley." The room erupted. My father slammed his hands on the table. "Ethan, tell me this isn't true." Ethan stood abruptly. "This is a setup. She's doing this because of family drama." I met his eyes coldly. "This has nothing to do with family. It has everything to do with fraud." Security was called. As Ethan was escorted out, screaming threats, my father stared at me like I was a stranger. "Amara," he said hoarsely, "please, this isn't who you are." I leaned forward. "No, this is who I've always been. You just never cared enough to see it." The board voted unanimously. My father's position was terminated effective immediately. When the meeting ended, I found him alone in his office, standing before an old framed photo. Him, my mother, and me at a summer picnic. "She'd hate this," he murmured. "She'd hate what you became," I replied gently. "Not what I did." He turned to me, eyes wet. "I was lost after she died." "So was I said. "But I didn't destroy people to survive." I walked away before he could respond. Outside, the cold air hit my lungs sharply, but for the first time in years, I could breathe. 3 months after Ironvale Industrial Group officially became part of Aurelian Systems, I stood in my glass-walled office overlooking the Pacific Crest Bay, watching cargo ships move like quiet giants across the water. From up here, everything looked orderly, predictable, controlled. Down below, my phone buzzed with reports, approvals, and decisions that moved millions of dollars with a single signature. Ironvale's transformation had been swift and brutal in the way necessary change often is. Outdated machinery was replaced. Entire departments were retrained. Management structures were flattened, corruption removed, inefficiencies starved out. Employee satisfaction rose by nearly 30% in the first quarter alone. Productivity followed close behind. The numbers spoke clearly. But numbers had never been the hardest part. The hardest part was knowing that while a company could be rebuilt with data and discipline, a family could not. Lucas leaned against the doorframe of my office, coffee in hand. "You did what most executives couldn't," he said. "You separated emotion from execution." I nodded, though the praise sat uncomfortably in my chest. "Your father applied for a mid-level operations role in Northbridge Packaging," Lucas added carefully. "Word is he got it. I already knew. Industry circles are small. Success makes you visible even when you try not to look." "He also filed for divorce," Lucas continued. "Veronica emptied his personal accounts. Ethan's court date is next month." I closed my eyes briefly. Not because I felt victorious, but because I felt finished. That night, I met Naomi for dinner at a quiet rooftop restaurant. The city lights reflected in her glass of wine as she studied me with the kind of honesty only old friends are allowed. "So," she said, "do you feel better?" I considered the question carefully. "I feel resolved," I answered. "Not happy. Not empty. Just done." She smiled softly. "That sounds like peace trying to introduce itself." Maybe. Weeks passed. Then months. Aurelian expanded into renewable logistics. Governments signed new contracts. My calendar filled with meetings that shaped supply chains across continents. I was invited to conferences I declined, interviews I avoided. Back in Brighton Falls, my father sent letters. 12 of them. All unopened. Each envelope carried my name written in his careful, familiar handwriting. The sight of them made my chest tighten, but not enough to make me reach out. My therapist, Dr. Elaine Porter, once said something that stayed with me. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It means releasing the hope that the past could have been different. I released that hope quietly. One evening, while reviewing proposals in my office, I pulled out a small framed photo from my desk drawer. It was of my mother, laughing, sunlight caught in her hair, eyes full of pride. "You were right," I whispered to the empty room. "Success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about proving yourself right." I had done that, not by destroying my father, but by refusing to shrink for him ever again. Months later, I heard he asked about me. Asked if I was happy. Asked if I ever spoke of him. I didn't. That was the consequence he never expected. Not losing his job. Not losing his status. But losing access to the life I built. The milestones, the triumphs, the quiet victories. He never got to see the woman I became. And I was finally okay with that. Because walking away wasn't weakness. It was the moment I chose myself. If this story moved you, please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Your support helps these stories travel farther than you know, and reach the people who need them most.